The episode opens with our main lead, Jiang, being dragged into a grand court of the Joseon dynasty. At the center of the hall sits the king himself, his presence radiating authority. Everyone's eyes turn to Jiang as she is forced to kneel, her heart pounding. The silence breaks when King Laihan rises, unsheathing his sword. For a moment, it feels like Jiang's life will end right there. But instead of punishment, the king delivers a stunning decree: Jiang is to become the head of the royal kitchen. His conditions are merciless. She must present him with a new dish every single day, never repeating the same recipe. Failure will mean the most severe punishment imaginable. Shocked, Jiang struggles to understand how she ended up in such an impossible situation, and from here, the story rewinds to where it all began. Back in France, Jiang was competing in the world's most prestigious culinary tournament. Midway through, her stove suddenly failed. Desperate, she asked for help, but time was slipping away. With no other choice, she improvised, igniting dry gas and cooking directly over the flames. Against all odds, she prepared a perfectly tender steak. The judges were stunned. Jiang not only won the championship but was also crowned a Michelin 3-star chef. She immediately called her father back in Korea to share the news. Gravely ill, he was overjoyed, and with his last strength, he asked her for one final favor: to bring home a traditional Korean book he had always cherished. On her flight back, fate intervened. The day of a solar eclipse, a passenger spilled coffee over the ancient book. Jiang hurried to the lavatory to dry it, flipping through its fragile pages, only to stumble upon a strange enchantment. The moment she whispered the words, the eclipse peaked. Lights flickered, the pages glowed, and in a heartbeat, she was pulled out of the plane, straight into Joseon. But her arrival was far from graceful. Jiang fell directly into a webbed rope trap, left dangling from a tree. Panicked and disoriented, she cried out for help. Meanwhile, in the royal forest, King Laihan was on a hunt. He raised his bow, eyes locked on a deer. But just before releasing the arrow, a memory froze him. In his mind, he was no longer a hunter but a helpless child, watching his mother being dragged away, executed by the former king. Haunted by that past, the king tightened his grip on the bow. His eunuch begged him to return to the palace, warning of rebel attacks, but Laihan refused. Back at court, whispers spread. The Grand Queen Dowager warned that hunting on the day of an eclipse was defying heaven itself, while ministers condemned the king's recklessness. At that same moment, King Laihan, out hunting a fox, loosed an arrow, its shaft slicing the rope and sending Jiang crashing to the ground. Startled by her strange clothes and appearance, the king immediately suspected her of being a witch. He gave chase through the forest, determined to capture her. Jiang, terrified and confused, fled as he pursued with bow in hand. The chase reached its climax at the edge of a cliff. Cornered, Jiang tried to reason with him, insisting she was not an enemy but a chef. The king, unconvinced, raised his bow. But before he could strike, a rebel's arrow came screaming toward him. Struck by the attack, both Jiang and the king lost their footing and plunged together over the cliff, disappearing into the river below. After plunging into the river, chaos erupts in the royal forest. The king's guards scatter, searching desperately for their missing ruler. Meanwhile, Jiang slowly regains consciousness on the riverbank. Her head throbs, but the first thing she notices is the king, bleeding heavily from a rebel's arrow. Despite his hostility, she rushes to save him, tying her scarf tightly around his chest to stop the bleeding. Still disoriented, Jiang mutters that she needs to call an ambulance, believing her phone might be with him. She begins searching through his robes, but the king misinterprets her actions. Believing she is trying to finish him off, he lashes out violently. Jiang pleads, trying to explain she means no harm, but the furious king refuses to listen. Their scuffle grows clumsy and desperate until, in a shocking turn, Jiang delivers a headbutt that knocks the king unconscious. Seizing the chance, she binds his hands and drags him along, declaring him her hostage. The king, though weakened, repeatedly warns her, "I am your king. You will be punished for this insolence." But Jiang brushes off his threats, determined to survive. Back at the palace, word spreads quickly. A maid rushes to inform the queen consort, the king's wife, of her husband's disappearance. Suspicion immediately hardens in her eyes. She believes it must be the doing of the second prince, Imsenungja. This revelation sparks a memory from her dark past. Once, she had been imprisoned, broken by torment. It was during those days that the second prince visited her cell. He revealed how he first saw her at a brothel house, a girl left untouched, later sold into misery. She endured brutal torture and abuse at the hands of her owner until the day she killed him. It was then that the second prince appeared, extending a hand of salvation. He promised freedom in exchange for her loyalty, striking a deal that changed her fate forever. Snapping back to the present, the queen instructs the second prince of the king's disappearance. The tension between them is clear, their alliance may run deeper than it first appears. Out in the wilderness, Jiang and the king wander for hours. Exhausted, they finally stumble upon an abandoned house deep in the forest. Seeking shelter, Jiang drags the reluctant king inside. But he glares at her, warning that this place is forbidden ground. This land is reserved for the royal hunt, he growls. No one but the king may step here. You are already trespassing against the throne. Still bound by disbelief, Jiang grumbles about the man she's been forced to travel with. In her eyes, he is nothing more than a rude and arrogant stranger, claiming to be a king. She mocks his words, calling him a fraud. How could a real ruler be so brutal and merciless? He brags of authority, yet she only recalls the stories she overheard, of a tyrant king who threw people out of their homes, who forced innocent girls into his chambers. To Jiang, this has to be some twisted reenactment or a bizarre drama shoot in the 21st century. As she looks around, her eyes fall on a set of hanbok hanging from a rope to dry. Her modern clothes are torn and muddied, clinging uncomfortably to her skin. Reluctantly, Jiang takes down the hanbok and wears it. As she adjusts her attire, a sudden noise echoes from the storeroom. Jiang approaches cautiously, only to be confronted by a frightened girl who threatens her, accusing Jiang of being a thief. After tense words, the two eventually talk, and though the girl's speech and fear seem far too real, Jiang still struggles to accept that she has truly fallen into the Joseon era. Soon hunger gnaws at them both. Jiang, ever the chef, proposes that she cook. The other girls in hiding eagerly gather ingredients from the sparse stores, while Jiang takes charge of the kitchen. Using what little they have, she whips together a simple yet flavorful meal. As night falls, they sit together, sharing the food. The king, still tied and fuming, refuses at first. Suspicious, he demands that Jiang taste it herself before he dares touch it. But once he finally relents, his stern expression softens. The dish is delicious. Then comes a moment no one expects. As Jiang lifts a spoon to feed him, the king's eyes glaze with memory. He recalls his mother, the last time she fed him as a child before being dragged away and executed under the orders of the throne. The warmth of Jiang's food cracks his icy exterior, and to everyone's shock, tears roll down his face. The girls whisper among themselves, convinced the king is crying because the food was unbearably spicy. Jiang, meanwhile, can't help but smirk at his vulnerability. After dinner, Jiang and the other girl decide to venture out. Jiang insists they must search the mountainside, hoping desperately to recover her lost phone. On their way, they stop by a river. There, Jiang kneels to wash her hair, the cool water bringing her a fleeting sense of normalcy. But back at the house, danger brews. The king's royal guards finally arrive. Recognizing the forbidden hunting grounds, they set the house ablaze in their search. The flames roar into the night, and the king, now free, orders them coldly, "Find the girl who dared insult me. She will not escape punishment." Unaware of this, Jiang hums to herself as she rinses her hair. Suddenly, the sound of armored footsteps and clashing steel carries across the riverbank. She looks up to see the royal guards sweeping the area. She screams for help, her voice echoing into the night. The king, hearing her desperate call, freezes. His eyes narrow. The very girl who vexed him, now calls out to him. And with this cliffhanger, the episode comes to an end. And that wraps up episode 1 of Bon Appetit, Your Majesty. Honestly, I think this was a really strong start. The pacing kept me hooked, and the way the show blends romance, time travel, and palace politics feels refreshing. I especially loved how Jiang's modern perspective clashes with the rigid traditions of the Joseon era. It adds both humor and tension. The chemistry between Jiang and the king already feels promising, and that final scene where their fates collide definitely sets up a bigger story ahead. If the drama keeps this balance of lighthearted comedy and emotional depth, I think we're in for a really entertaining ride. What did you guys think of the first episode? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for my episode 2 breakdown. See you soon!